Hello, my name is Pigwithmustache. Well, not really. Can you imagine how traumatic that would be for me? But that is the name of my YouTube channel, and today I got a video for you. As you can see by the title of this video, I made an experiment where I moved Manchester City forward Erling Haaland to the United States and see what happens there. I also believe it's a good idea to make a video simple enough so everyone can understand, so I decided to explain everything from the basics. If you don't know who Erling Haaland is, he's a Norwegian killer robot whose only purpose in life is to prove that humans are inferior at everything. He is some sort of Frankenstein, since he has some of the abilities of the best players of all time. Like he's as good at heading a ball as Pelé, his spatial awareness in positioning is as good as Pelé's, he's got the physical strength of Pelé, but mostly importantly, he's got the shooting ability of Pelé, which makes him the perfect football player. Meanwhile, in the Major League Soccer, which is the top football league in the United States and Canada, players there, especially the defenders, are known for not being very good at football. So the expectation is that if Haaland moved to the MLS, he would score at least 5 goals every season. One big detail about this experiment is to choose which MLS team is the best for Haaland to play for. Since every club has different players, different tactics, and different mentalities, they can give wildly different results. So I decided to test with various different teams. First, the MLS team that has the best passers, so they should give better opportunities for Haaland to score. Here I chose Seattle Sounders since they have a bunch of players, all with good passing and good vision and could help him. Second, I chose the team with the best fullbacks so they could give better crosses for Haaland to take the opportunities, since, well, he's very tall, and because of that should have an easy time with higher balls. Here, it wasn't obvious which club to choose, so I picked the DC United since they do have at least a couple players with good crossing. Third, the strongest team in the league, or at least the team with the strongest attacking power, so they should give the most goal-scoring opportunities to him. To decide the team, I simulated one full season of the league and I picked the club with the most shots made, and it looked like Minnesota was that club. Fourth, the weakest team. Since Haaland would be their only hope to score, ideally everyone would try to pass to him as much as possible. So I used the same simulation as before, and I picked the last place team in the league. I also compared the players' abilities to pick the team which would be, in my opinion, the weakest one. And with all of that considered, I picked Montreal. In a 50 team, because I believe testing with 4 clubs is a bit weird, but 5 is fine, so I chose a club that I liked, and that club is Atlanta United, since when you start the game, they have players like Ezequiel Baco and Thiago Almada. And lastly, to guarantee I got enough data to compare, I made sure Haaland would be stuck at those clubs for 5 seasons. I also wanted to have some sort of control group for the experiment, so I made a normal save with the latest official database where Haaland was still playing for Dortmund, and then I let that save run for 5 seasons to compare. In Haaland's first season for Dortmund, the club does a strong showing, almost winning the league, although Bayern managed to be slightly better than them. In fact, they lost to Bayern in all competitions. But as a positive, he does score more goals than Lewandowski this season, which leads him to be the only non-Bayern player in Bundesliga's Team of the Year. Before we see Haaland's next season for Dortmund, let's take a look at the alternate realities first. Alright, I just simulated the entire first season of Seattle. I can already tell things did not go so well. They were one of the least scoring teams from the first stage despite having a machine built to score goals. Apparently it was because he was out for nearly 3 months of the season, and because of that he played only 11 matches where he scored 7 goals. But at least he had a crazy scoring record for his national team, but that might be because he got to play against Latvia, Montenegro and Gibraltar, so that's not as impressive as it seems. Moving on to the second universe, he helped DC United qualify to the playoffs but did not get far. Haaland himself had a very poor season with only 16 goals in 26 matches. What is going on with him? Is the MLS really that hard for him? He didn't even finish among the top scorers this season, but somehow he still won MVP. During this season, I noticed something really weird. Haaland for some reason wasn't playing for Minnesota. I restarted the save and I tested it again and the problem continued. Did I break the game too much by moving Haaland there? They prefer to use Luis Maria instead of him, and because of that, Haaland did not play a single league match for the entire season. But this happened for the national team. Poor Gibraltar. His first season for Montreal doesn't go so well, finishing near the bottom of the table, but at least they managed to be national champions. of Canada. What was so interesting about this season is that despite being unimpressive with only 26 goals in 30 games, he somehow made the World 11. It seems everyone in Europe was so bad this time that a decent season in the US was enough to get their attention. And finally, Haaland at Atlanta United. In his first season, Atlanta reaches the playoffs and loses to New York Red Bulls, while he gets 31 goals in 31 games, which was more than enough to be the league's top scorer. So, we are at the point of the video where I ask you to like this video and subscribe. I know it might be hard, but it does help me out. And since I'm writing this video before releasing my first one, I still have 0 subscribers as far as I know. So please subscribe so I can stay motivated to make more videos like this one. Also, if you didn't see, check my first video about the most unique teams in FM. I promise, despite the audio being awful, it's well worth your time. From this point forward, to differentiate all the different alternate realities and to make it easier for you to understand which Haaland I'm talking about, I decided to give them nicknames. They are Erling Haaland, Second Haaland, Third Haaland, Fourth Haaland, Fifth Haaland, and Pablo. And don't you forget, I'm also gonna show what team they play for in the bottom right of the video. Right there, I think. Or here? I think it's there. In his second season, things were better at an individual level, scoring 29 goals in 33 matches, which is still a bit disappointing for Haaland. His club, again, barely qualified to playoffs, but this time they lost to Minnesota. I guess that's because they are so good they don't need Haaland. After all, they have Luis Maria. He did manage to be the top scorer and MVP this time around. Also, something funny that happened in the All-Star match, the US team defeated the Mexican one 11-0 with 5 goals from the man himself, because for some reason the Mexicans did not send their best. I don't know if this is a glitch in the game, but this is a consistent event in all of the realities. In his third season for Seattle, you'd think by looking at the image that the best forward in the world plays for Portland or Minnesota, right? But no, he plays for the team that has a negative goal difference. This season for Haaland is just like the last with 28 goals in 30 matches and losing at the conference semifinals for the second year in a row. Again, he wins the MVP title and also wins the Golden Boot against his arch-enemy. For the fourth season, Seattle kinda fixes their defense, but the attack is still lackluster. Haaland somehow forgot his football in Europe and hit the net only 18 times in 26 games. With this poor quality, it's easy to see that they will not do well at the playoffs, and sure enough, they lose in the first match against Dallas. This season is so poor for him that he's not even the top scorer, but somehow he still got the MVP. On a more positive note, Norway won the 2024 Euros, showing that Football Manager can be realistic sometimes. In his fifth season, Haaland finally decided to wake up. Seattle was top of the league with the most goals scored, they made it to the final, and then he scored 5 past Atlanta, finally doing the minimum that was expected of him. His individual numbers were on par with expectations, with him scoring 47 goals in 36 matches, being by far the top scorer, easy MVP winner, and he even got a prize for fair play. I guess the meditation has finally paid off. His season was so good he made the World Dream Team despite playing the MLS in a season where Phil Foden was surprisingly strong. So to recap his numbers, Haaland played a total of 132 matches with 129 goals. Let's see how that compares with the other Haalands. For his second season at DC, another bad year since this time the team doesn't even qualify to playoffs. At least they reached the cup final though. It seems the true striker formation does not suit him well since he's sharing the goals with his attacking partner for the second year in a row, netting only 18 goals in 30 matches, and despite not making the dream team this time, he still wins MVP though, so I guess the award really is broken. The third year goes somewhat better, with a decent third place in the conference, but they're out in the first round of playoffs again. This time, Haaland has a good season though, with 30 goals in 32 games, winning the Golden Boot trophy and, you guessed it, the MVP as well. At least this time he deserves it. Fourth season, same thing, 29 goals in 29 games, qualifies playoffs and loses, not even gonna bother with awards this time. Fifth season though, they make all the way to the conference finals and lose, like always. Haaland scores 29 goals in 32 matches, bringing his total to 122 goals in 149 games. In the second season the same thing was happening, Haaland still was not being called up to play, until I realized I forgot to change his name to Third Haaland, and when I did, I got a crash dump. which turned out to be a good thing, because when I was simulating the season again, for some reason he started playing somewhere in the middle of the year. He even scored a hat-trick on his first league match, and still managed to finish the season as the top scorer of the team, with 17 goals in 12 matches. Minnesota was on top of the first stage and reached the conference final, but eventually lost to Real Salt Lake. The third season was weird. Minnesota scored 70 goals and still finished among the last place teams. Haaland himself got a respectable 35 goals in 27 games in the league. This, amongst the other performances, poor Andoha, granted him a spot in the FIFA Dream Team as a starter. He also got the other awards at MLS. I'm not even gonna show them at this point. Interestingly, they played in the CONCACAF Champions League and lost to future champions DC United. I'm starting to notice a trend that every single team Haaland plays for is playing better without him. The fourth season was remarkable only by Haaland's goal-scoring record of 42 goals in 31 games, but his team lost in playoffs again. The fifth season, though, was spectacular. Minnesota scored 82 goals in the first stage, with Haaland himself scoring 49 times in 26 games, and then they lose in playoffs anyway. I guess Haaland just was not meant to win with them. His absurd season did put him as the best player in the world despite playing the US, winning all individual awards possible, which makes third Haaland the most successful US Haaland so far. He also scored 143 times in 96 games. Maybe the secret to unlock your player's potential is to not use him for an entire season, because this is the best Haaland has been so far. His second season for Montreal goes a little better than the first, with the team scoring 68 goals in the first stage, reaching the conference finals, and Haaland being responsible for 43 goals in 35 games in the league. This year, they failed to win the Canadian Championship and the Champions, but at least Haaland makes the World 11 again. Third season, the team struggles again, but at least Haaland has a good year. The team fails to go far in the Champions, loses the Canadian Championship, yet somehow he makes the World 11. Is it because technically he's playing for a Canadian team now that he's getting more recognition? Those seasons are not even that good. Fourth season, they lose in playoffs again. Haaland has a good season this time around, and again he makes the world team. Fifth season, usually when Haaland is at his peak, his team fails to qualify. Also, he scores only 21 goals, which was just enough to be the top scorer of the league. Also, unrelated to the content of the video, but the 2026 World Cup here ends in a Moukoko and Kane individual battle that goes to extra time, with Moukoko coming on top in the end, showing that FM can be really unrealistic sometimes, because no way England makes a World Cup final. So in total, Haaland scored 155 goals in 148 matches for Montreal, which is a decent average. In the second season for Atlanta, they lose in playoffs against the New York Red Bulls, although this year for some reason he only played 6 times for them, so I don't know what's going on. He even lost the MVP that year, which makes sense I guess. It would be a little bit too much if he won the MVP award with only 6 matches played. Third season, they make it to the conference finals and lose again to Red Bull. He does go 31 goals in 31 games, which is fine, enough to let him go to the World 11 this universe as well. Fourth season, Atlanta dominates the first stage, scoring almost 20 goals more than the other teams, and this time they don't lose to New York Red Bulls. They lose to New York City.
New York is a hellhole!
And he scores 37 goals in 25 games. Fifth season, Haaland wakes up again, he scores 43 goals in 34 matches and helps his team win the league, and then he gets to the road team as well. Imagine what this guy could do at Manchester City. In his stint for Atlanta, he scored 147 goals in 129 games. In Pablo's second season for Dortmund, the club does even better than the last time, but they still lost to Bayern. Because, as we all know, Bundesliga has only one major rule, and that is 18 clubs play in a league, and in the end, Bayern always wins. Pablo breaks Messi's record of 50 goals scored in the league by scoring 51 in Bundesliga. In his third season, he moves to Manchester City. Yet, despite having Pablo, they somehow still lose the league, in part because of Pablo's humble season with only 27 goals scored. Apparently, he did not get used to the Premier League so quickly. He didn't even manage to be the league's top scorer. In the 24-25 season, his second year in England, Pablo finally wins the league, thanks to an incredible 39 goals scored against Salah's measly 24. In the final season, a very strong Liverpool side takes the title, but also, what happened in there? I don't know if I'm more surprised by Leeds or Newcastle going to the Champions League, or by Arsenal and Tottenham becoming mid-table teams. In the end, Haaland got a respectable 38 goals in 33 matches this season. I also have tried to not show the World Awards this time because, well, he won everything he could. So, with all the numbers on this position, what can we conclude? First of all, scoring in Major League Soccer is just as hard as scoring in the Premier League, and both are much, much harder than scoring in Bundesliga. Second of all, if you want to win, do not sign Erling Haaland. I guess that's it. Bye bye.